Okay, so sometimes we have very large files that we're working with, like 4K, 6K, 8K files, and our machines aren't fast enough to process the files and give you a smooth video playback so you can edit. So when that happens, we use proxy files in lieu of the original files. Proxy files let you edit with the smaller version. We can reduce the size of it, both the resolution size and the file size with proxy files. We do all our editing with these files, and then when we're ready to export, we just simply tell Premiere to go back to the original files and export it using the higher quality settings of your footage. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to go to the Adobe Cloud and download Media Encoder. And this is it here. I already have it up on my computer. Okay, so here is Media Encoder. This is a great program if you need to change or compress files. So if you need to change from one format to another, maybe you're using a QuickTime file and you want to transcode it into an MP4, or maybe you want to change the settings of a large file, compress it, use a different codec. Media Encoder is a great tool to do that. So just to show you really quick, I'm going to import this really big file. This is a trailer for Bohemian Rhapsody. So from here, it will load your file into the Q bin, and we simply can change the format or the preset that we're using, and then select where we want to save the new compressed file. So instead of QuickTime, maybe I would like to use the H.264 format. And for the preset, it automatically defaults to match source, high bit rate. I can change that if I like. And I can select, maybe if I'm going to post this on Twitter, I can select the Twitter preset. There's YouTube presets, Vimeo, so different presets that you can use. I'm just going to let it default to the match source, high bit rate. And then I will tell it, maybe I'll just save it on my desktop and rename it. And it is ready. So you can add multiple files to your Q bin here. And when you're ready to transcode them, all you need to do is click this green button and it says Start Queue. It'll display it as it's encoding the file down here, give you a progress bar. Okay, and so what we've done is we've outputted it to a 158.5 megabits. The original file size of this was 2.38 gigs. So you can see how this could be really handy for you when working with large files. So when we're working with proxy files, I just like to open up Media Encoder because we're going to be using this. Well, Premiere is. We don't need to do anything per se. It's done automatically for us in Premiere. But I do like to open it up just to make sure that it's on. So in Premiere, we're going to start a new project. And we'll just title this Proxy Files. Now, before going any, and I'll just tell it where to save. Now, before we hit OK, we're going to go to this Ingest Settings tab and check the box for ingest. And then click on this drop-down menu where copy is selected, and we're going to change copy to create proxies. Then we can select the resolution of the file that we want to work with. So I'm going to select the 1280 by 720 H.264. And I'm going to hit OK. And then when you're importing your files, it's really important to select your files from the Media Browser tab. So make sure that you're in the editing workspace. Make sure that the Media Browser is showing. So go up to Window and make sure that the Media Browser is checked off. Click on the tab. And then from here, simply navigate to where the 4K files are at. And I'm just going to select them. You can do Command A to select all, or if there's only a few, you can just draw a box around them. Right-click and select Import. Now when I did that, Premiere automatically took those files into Adobe Encoder. So if I navigate over to Encoder, we can see that it's already starting to transcode those and make them into proxy files. So that's kind of done in the background. I'm going to just minimize Encoder. Okay, so back into Premiere, a couple of things that we need to do now is in our source program monitor, we're going to add a button. So click on that little plus sign button editor, and we're going to use the toggle proxy icon, which is two files with arrows going back and forth. And we're going to take that and drag it down to our button area and then hit OK. So now there's a little icon there for toggle proxies. We're going to do the same thing for our program monitor with the plus key. Oops. Okay, so now we can use that button to go back and forth between the original file and the proxy file. So when I click on one of these files, and you can see it's still 4K video here, but when I double click and play it, I can toggle whether I'm working with the 4K video or the proxy file. So that is a proxy file, and I can tell because it's a little smaller. When we made it into a proxy file, the dimensions weren't a one-to-one match, so it's going to have this letterbox effect at the top and the bottom on here. But so now you can just edit as normal, set an in and an out, and drag your first clip down to the timeline. You can rename your timeline. And when you're playing it back, it's going to play the 720 by 1280 file, even though this still says 4K. Same thing over here. You can watch the 4K footage. So I can hit that toggle button and it'll go back to the original footage. So you would do all of your editing, select another clip, when you're ready to export your entire program, then revert back to the original 4K by toggling the proxy, render your sequence, and simply do Command M and export as normal. And then you can choose whether you want the H.264 format. The video settings will be 4K settings for the original one. And that is how you work with 4K footage or higher footage more efficiently with your computer. One thing I forgot to mention, when Media Encoder is encoding your files, it'll create another file at the smaller resolution and retitle it your original name _ proxy, and then it'll save it into your Premiere folder file. So again, here are my original 4K files. And then once they're encoded into the smaller one, it'll title it _proxy, and you can see it's now 1280 by 720.